Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to a video, and today we're going to be checking out some new ISDT products. So let's first start with this big brick in the back. So this thing is quite big, it doesn't even really fit in the camera here. This is actually ISDT's SP3060 power supply. You can see we got a nice fan up top, and this is a little bit of an interesting product just because of how huge it is. And on the website it claims that it can do 720 watts on 120 volt output or input, and if you're on 240 volts you can push up to 1800 watts out of this thing. Now this is pretty much just about the beefiest commercial ready to go power supply that I've seen. Something you're more used to probably seeing up in these power levels is something like this, like a server rack power supply. These are typically very cheap. However, there is some sort of sketch factor when wiring those up, and the ISDT is kind of the opposite of that. This is a very nice, clean product, almost like an Apple product, similar to other ISDTs. You know, we have a fully encased metal shell here, we have a couple of LEDs, we have a nice large fan on top with a little carrying handle. Kind of weird there, but this is actually quite heavy. It's like 5 pounds or something. And then on the back we have our breakout. One interesting note about the plug it came with, comes with this cord here, which be fine and dandy, however it ends in the European adapter, so I had to use a different cord. That might be an issue. I'm not sure if they sent mine with this on accident or if they don't offer a US version, but that's just something to note. You'll either need another cord or an adapter. But on the back we just have a on-off switch and our IC5 out. And now they do give you these connectors in the box. They give you this IC5 and XT60. However, they don't give you the wire. I soldered this up myself. So you can just plug in your output to another charger that takes XT60 input, or whatever input you want you can put on here. So the charger I'm using is the ISDT T6. Now I chose this one specifically since in the US our outlets are 120 volts. This power supply will only be able to output 720 watts, and the max output power of this is 780 watts. So it'll be a pretty perfect fit. We should be able to get about 30 amps of 6S out of it. And if you're running a higher voltage that you would be able to get more power out of it, you could get the ISDT T8. That's a more powerful version of this. So I've been using this power supply and charger for a couple days now, and I'll just show you the some clips here. I was charging all of my batteries at once. I think it was 14 6S batteries. I was charging at the max that this charger could do, which is 30 amps, and that's also the max this can do for the 120 volts of the wall that I'm feeding it. And you can see it handled it just fine. The power supply didn't get warm at all. However, my biggest problem with the power supply, the biggest problem by far, is that it's just so loud. The fan up top, as soon as you turn it on, the fan starts going, and I actually emailed ISDT because I thought the fan was on max speed because it's just such a loud fan compared to my other power supplies, and they emailed back saying that that's just what happens when it's on 120 volts. I'm not sure if it doesn't do it on 240 or not, but I was wrong about it being max because once I started charging at 30 amps, this thing cranked up. It was insanely loud, like 5 times, 10 times louder than my normal power supply. Which is really unfortunate. I guess it kind of makes sense. This is sort of more of a commercial, like industrialized power supply. It wants to be as safe as possible, so it's going to try to keep as cool as possible, but I just really wish that it had some fan settings that were adjustable so it wasn't on as soon as you turn it on, even if you're not charging anything. And as well as it's $280, which is extremely expensive for a power supply. Especially when you can get server rack PSUs like this for like 30, 20 bucks. This is 460 watts, and you can stack a couple of these together. So I'm really not seeing the value in this power supply. However, one of the nice things about it is that it outputs 29 volts. You see here it outputs 21 to 29 volts at 60 amps if you're on 240 volts. So that is very nice. My other power supply only outputs 15 volts. And when I'm trying to charge 6S batteries, that really shows in the wattage. It struggles. I can only get about 7.5 amps per channel of my 2-channel charger, whereas this one could pull 30 amps no problem. So that is definitely a benefit of being able to output the 29 volts. And then this charger, of course, takes 8 to 32 volts, so you're perfectly fine there. Both the charger and the power supply are backgo enabled, but as far as I know, the only backgo setting that you can change on this is the voltage that it outputs, adjusted from 21 to 29. That's not really that important unless your charger only takes like 25 or something. I didn't hook up the backgo. I didn't really see much point in that. So let's turn on the charger itself and just take a quick look through the menus. Pretty standard ISDT. You go through here, you have your different HV, LiPo, lithium ion, life, lead, and nickel metal hydride. Pretty standard. And then of course you can change the cell voltage to whatever you want within 0.05 of the cell range. And it does do up to 6S. The interesting note is it actually has an 8S balance port here, but you can see they cut out the last 2 pins. That's because I'm pretty sure this shares the same case as the T8. So just using the same mold, and they just made this 6S only. And then you can go all the way up to 30 amps, which is the last thing I was doing it on. You can charge, discharge, and storage, and they're all balanced by default. So as you saw earlier, this thing was having no problems putting out the 30 amps. I maxed it all the way 30 amp 6S. It was pulling about 720 watts, which is right about what it says it can do. So no complaints there. Definitely a lot happier with the T6 charger in terms of the price value and usability than the big old power supply. I don't see much point in that. Now in terms of general charging, I'm not sure about this. It's a little bit bigger than normal. If this is going to be your house, the way you're charging from your home, I think that's perfectly fine. However, in the field, I would still recommend something like this. You can see it's quite a bit smaller. This is the ISDT Q6 Plus. As well, takes a 6S input right there. And this is a 300 watt charger. So it can do about 13 amps on 6S. Not nearly as powerful as this guy, but I think it's a lot more useful in the field, and you can just have one of these in your bag with a big XC60 pack, and you can charge a bunch off that, which is what I do currently. So I wouldn't really recommend this style of the T6 or the T8 unless you're doing some serious charging, like 30 amps on 6S, charging a lot of packs at once, which is more suited to do from your house, whereas in your field, you're probably going to be charging 1 or 2 at a time at about 5 amps. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not too much to talk about here. Just, you know, the charger, the T6. I quite like the ICD power supply. I like it, but it's just too loud for me, and it's $270, which is kind of ridiculous for a power supply. Especially if you don't have 240 volts, you're not going to be able to get the 1800 watts that it promises. So I'm not really going to be recommending that. Obviously, recommend the Q6, my favorite charger. And then the little battery checker, the BC8S. I love this thing so much. It's just always with me, checking my battery voltages. Comes up quick and shows everything exactly how I want to see it. Very nice and clear for the cell voltages. And of course you have the other menus before. I've showed this in the previous video. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. There will be links to all these items down in the description below if you're interested. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.